Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into a really powerful shift in leadership. We're talking about what happens when leaders stop trying to solve every single problem by themselves and instead start building a team, a collective, to tackle their biggest challenges together. So, let's start with the big one. What does it really take to lead meaningful, lasting change? That's the core question for any leader, right? And the story we're exploring today, well, it offers a surprisingly practical answer. For so many leaders, the journey starts in a pretty familiar and often tough spot, feeling totally isolated, professionally speaking. And this quote from a leader in our story just nails it. When you're working in a silo, feeling like you're facing these huge challenges all on your own, that's a massive barrier to getting anything new done. It's this real feeling of professional loneliness. So when leaders feel that pressure to improve things, what's the first instinct? A lot of the time, it's to look outward, to frame the challenge as a teacher problem. It becomes something that other people need to fix. Okay, and this is the crucial turning point. One leader talked about this huge shift. They went from seeing a teacher problem to seeing a leadership problem of practice. So what does that mean? It means they stopped pointing fingers and started looking in the mirror. They started asking, okay, how are my actions and decisions either helping or hurting the outcomes we're trying to get? So, how do you even make that massive shift from being isolated to actually looking at your own work? Well, it all starts by connecting with others for growth. The solution here wasn't some new manual or textbook. It was about people. This group, the Instructional Leadership Collective, was formed specifically to create a space for open, really honest conversations. A facilitator who was watching noticed that trust grew incredibly fast because people finally felt safe to share not just their wins, but their real, everyday struggles. And you can see the direct impact of that trust right here in this quote. This leader felt comfortable enough to actually ask for help when they were stuck. Think about that. In a culture where leaders are supposed to have all the answers, this group totally reframed asking for help. It became a sign of strength, not weakness. But look, a safe space is just the foundation. It's the starting line. The real work began when the group moved beyond just talking and got into a structured way of solving problems together. One of the first big developments was learning to simplify. As one person put it, at first they were trying to tackle way too many big ideas at once. But by working together, they learned how to narrow their focus down to specific, manageable problems. And that made the work feel so much more doable and way less overwhelming. The key tool they used was something called a problem of practice, or POP for short. Now, this isn't just any old problem. A POP has to be specific, it has to be solvable, and this is the most important part, it has to be something the leader can directly control. It forces them to put their energy where it can actually make a difference. And to tackle these problems of practice, they didn't just guess what to do. They used a structured process called the cycle of inquiry. It's this continuous loop. First, you clarify the exact problem. Then you gather real evidence. Next, you take targeted action. And then, and this is so crucial, you reflect on what happened and refine your approach. This repeatable cycle becomes the engine for real, lasting improvement. So, all of this structure, this process, it all leads to one critical outcome, moving from just having data to actually putting it into action. And this is where the theory really became practice. For example, a leader named Paige used student feedback to totally reshape professional development. Amber conducted empathy interviews to truly understand what students were going through. And Jen used data from classroom walkthroughs not to judge, but as a way to inform her own leadership and build trust with their staff. In every single case, the data had a clear purpose. The whole mindset just shifted. As one leader put it, they realized it wasn't about collecting more data, but about doing deeper dives into the right data. That's what transforms data from being a simple report card into a compass that actually guides your next steps. So, what happens when leaders start working this way? Well, the learning doesn't just stay locked inside the group. It creates this powerful ripple effect that spreads all through their organizations. These leaders didn't keep this process to themselves, no way. They took it back to their schools. They started using these inquiry cycles with their own teams, they developed new assessment strategies, and they deepened their efforts around inclusion. They even shared the whole approach with their colleagues, spreading the practice even further out. And what this all creates in the end is a sustainable feedback loop. Learning is no longer some one-time event you do alone. It becomes cyclical and shared. When one leader tries something new, that experience gets brought back to the collective, and that enriches everyone's learning. It permanently breaks the cycle of the isolated leader. And that kind of leaves us with one final question to chew on. This whole story started with leaders feeling alone, trying to solve these massive problems all by themselves. But after seeing how they completely transform their work and their impact by doing it together, it really makes you wonder, are our biggest, most complicated challenges actually designed to be solved together?